Bill, well, through the meetings, I've known Bill for about 3 years, I guess. Didn't know a lot about him. I went looking on the web trying to find a few things and wasn't able to find much. But I did find out, at least according to what I saw, he joined Rotary in 1994, which means he's been here for a member of the club for at least 28 years. Bill may want to correct us on that when he gets into his speaker. He is also an honorary member of our club. He is a past president, a past district governor, a past district officer, and is in many roles at the district and zone level, raising funds for projects. He's traveled extensively over the years, making connections and helping our club executive make international projects successful. With that, I think I'll turn it over to Bill and the two Bills.
Well, thank you, Jim, for that overview of Bill's service, and welcome, Bill, and thank you for all you do, and for saying yes to a conversation on your Rotary work. This is going to be fun. The problem is that we don't have 3 hours to talk about your work, so we have to be strategic. We'll mainly talk about one project. The literary term for what we're doing is synecdoche, a figure of speech in which a part represents the whole. So on that note, today you are our right hand in understanding international work and understanding what it's like for a Rotarian to take part in an international project from conception to realization is very timely for our club, because we are learning how to make an international project work right on our own doorstep, right here in Kingston. Our collaboration with Pathways to Education in supporting high school graduates who have benefited from the Pathways project has the potential to teach us a lot about building sustainable partnerships and to help us understand our community better. Well, first, Jim mentioned some of this, but just a quick bit on your connection with Rotary. You joined in '94, and your sponsor was John Gale. But what drew you to Rotary and to our club in particular?
Okay. I was interested in Rotary because my father was a Rotarian and my grandfather was a Rotarian, my father's father. And I knew how much they enjoyed it. My grandfather received a painting from the Rotary Club of Toronto in 1936 for his service to the club. It hangs on the wall upstairs. And my dad was the president-elect of the Rotary Club of Toronto when he passed away in 1969. So there was this feeling about Rotary, and I remember every once in a while, men, because that was all there were then, with their suits and ties would come to our home to play Rotary bridge. And I wasn't sure about bridge, but and I wasn't sure about the smoking that was going on in the house either. But anyway, when John Gale invited me to come to a meeting, I said, "Oh, that sounds interesting." So that's what happened. I didn't look anywhere else. I was new to Kingston, and having an invitation to go anywhere was pretty exciting.
Right. So you've been we've been your one and only club as a member, but of course you've been involved with many clubs. And also, just remind us quickly, the work you did that was in financial planning, and how did that fit in? Financial advisor. Okay, and how did that fit in with Rotary?
Well, I think the thing is you learn how to listen, but it's about building relationships actually. And if there's no trust, there's no work being done. You're not gonna, if you don't trust your advisor, the advisor's gonna have a financial problem. So the advisor has to find a way to make people feel comfortable. And I think that was good learning for me, good training.
Now, when I think of you and Rotary, I always think of international service. And how did you get started in that?
Okay. Well, in the fall of 1967 at Western University, someone I knew invited me to apply for a project called Operation Crossroads Africa. And I said, well, that sounds interesting. My grandfather had traveled from Cape to Cairo peddling hand tools. And so I said, sure, I'd go to the interview. And of course, it was a horrible interview. A bunch of people who looked like us asking me questions I couldn't answer. And I said, well, that's a waste of my time. But anyway, they decided I was a good candidate. And I went to Liberia in 1968, and we built wells and latrines, dug them, and poured the concrete, did all of that. And that really set it up. That was a long time ago. But from that experience, when Rotary came along and I started to learn about the international side, I was really much more open to doing things because I had done a project when I was a youngster.
Now, in this international work, you've mentored many people, including me, and you always seem to have at least one notebook at hand, and you could just quickly flip through it and find just the right contact in your vast network, and you'd always give words of encouragement with a sparkle in your eye. But there must have been people who mentored you, and who were they, and what did they inspire in you?
Well, if I think about that, the two that come to mind the most are people that have been to Kingston. We've had them here, but the first one is past District Governor Krish from the Rotary Club of Madras. He came into my life in 2002, and he's been fantastic ever since. Hosted me, and we've hosted him, and he's always following up and saying, when are you coming? What about this? Here's a good project to look at, etc. And the other is a fellow named Tusu Tusubira from the Rotary Club of Kampala North in Uganda. And I met him when I first went to Kenya in 2006. He was a new governor. But I'd been reading his his comments, monthly comments from his trips around. The district was 5 countries at that time. And I was really impressed with Tusu. And I don't know, we've been at it ever since 2006. And our relationships get deeper. And I might actually learn something somewhere along the line.
Now, okay, well, now let's get down to the nitty gritty here. Of the many projects, I think you said you've probably been involved with about 50. I'd like you to pick one, just one, and let's walk through it from A to Z. And through this walk, I expect we'll meet quite a few people, since you've mentioned how important it is to build relationships. That's a big part of the success of projects. Okay, so what's your pick?
Okay, the pick I would make is the Rotary Bone Bank, or the Bone Bank. That was a project that we are involved with the Rotary Club of Madras Central. It's just an incredible thing. You know, at the time when we started the conversation, there was only one other bone bank in the whole country of India. And every hospital in Canada has a bone bank, or all the big hospitals, but they don't. And so this was really going to be quite special. And so I said, look, this is interesting. It came to us from our good friend Krish, or my good friend Krish. And it was coming from a club that we had a connection to, because the promoter of the project was Madras Central, and Vinod at that club created all the shirts that many of us wear today. And I still have one on right this morning, Rotary shirt. His firm basically donated them, and it raised $100,000 for Rotary polio work from the donation of those shirts. So that we all paid $25 for. And so when those two were a thing, I said, there's no way we can't do this. We must do the project. It was a good decision.
And I mentioned to Joan yesterday that you were going to be talking about bone bank, and she's, bone bank? What's that? You mean bone marrow? And I said, no, I think this is real bones where people, and then I started reading about it, and it really is actual bones of humans who have died and have agreed to donate their bones so that they can you tell us a little bit about what this means to people who would get a transplant from one of these
well,
from this bank?
If you have bone cancer, the only way around it prior to this is many surgeries, metal prostheses, and lots of repeat work as time goes on and resizing the prostheses. And so many operations, and of course, you may not have success. And those metal things aren't as good as bone. Bone is stronger, it's much cheaper, and it's less expensive to acquire. There's not just cancers, of course, people who have injuries from, let's say they fall off their motorbike, or they're hit by a car, or any number of things, an industrial accident could also benefit from a bone bank. And so it was pretty interesting, and I thought this is something we should do. Vinod, who was the shirt man, his father had kicked it off by saying he put in $30,000 to get started. And that commitment means a lot to me when people say, look, I'm in. And it helped me to learn about being in too.
Mm-hmm. And you've told us a little bit about how you heard. This of course fits in terms of the 7 areas. This is disease prevention and treatment. Then
that's
very
right.
Clearly, yeah. And bone grows too.
That's right. It's a living thing, and so bone becomes part of the existing, like links itself with the bone of the person who's going to receive it, becomes very strong, and as the person grows, the bone grows too. It's an amazing invention. I think we should have more of it.
I was just thinking about that song, them bones, them dry bones, them bones. It's literally them coming alive. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah. And now, in an international project, there are many people with many different roles. And why don't you say a little bit about your role, and then we'll talk about other roles too and how you worked with the others. But what was your role in this particular project?
I think my main role is cheerleader.
Okay.
Helping the club that wanted to do it to say that they could, help them to, because it's a big deal. Another aspect of that is to say, look, to our club, to say, look, this is something we should do. And thirdly, to go to the international community or other places to find the money that we need to do our aspect of the project, being the international partner.
So using that notebook to dig through and say, I remember meeting so-and-so, and I'll bet they'd be interested, and you get on the phone or email and bring them in.
That's right. And so, but, one relationship leads to another. And I might just say that the funds came from, a big source was from the Rotary Club of Nipigon. And you say, Nipigon? Well, on my first trip to India in 2008, I was in an airport waiting to fly back to Chennai, where I was going to speak to the Rotary Club of Madras at lunch. I had my tie on, my jacket, because that's when everybody did that thing. And there was a suitcase there with End Polio Now on the stickers on it. And somehow there were people attached to that suitcase. And it turned out they'd just been in India doing a polio vaccination effort. So we became fast friends, and of course we went different places on the airplane. I went one direction and they went to another, but a few months later they were working with us on a project in Chennai, helping us to find the money that we couldn't find. I couldn't find anywhere else.
That's a really neat example of how important it is just to wave the Rotary flag, because you never know what connections it's going to make wherever
We've worked together many times since then. And on this project, they gave us $1,500, and their district came in $1,500. The other place was the Rotary Club of Kampala North. They said they would raise $2,000 for us and get $2,000 from their district designated fund, but they didn't. They raised $2,600 of cash. Uganda is a poor place, and they got $4,000 from their district and district designated funds, and it actually was enough to plus our money, and we had the international component looked after. It was really remarkable. In those days, the Rotary Foundation matched cash and they matched district designated funds. But those relationships, they come in very helpfully. They're very helpful as time goes on, because Rotarians don't care what the project is. Once you get to know people, they want to help however they can. Sorry, I don't want to use the word help. That's not a good word. Bill and I had
We
a
talked
discussion
about
about the
that,
word
yeah.
help. It's not a good word to use. They want to support each other to achieve things, because all of our communities have needs. There's no community in the world, no matter how well off it is, that doesn't have needs. So
Yeah, it's
Rotarians
just working
know that.
together and encouraging each other. You know.
Yeah.
But now
yeah,
there are some formalities to this. I mean, Rotary is, we know, and we've heard, we've been reminded about the Rotary Foundation and just how careful it is in making sure projects are well conceived and well supported and so on. And I think you were our primary contact for this particular one. Is that right?
Yes, I was.
And what does the primary contact do? What's the responsibility there?
Well, let me just say, I like to request that the host club, in this case, Madras Central, that they write the application. They're closer to the action, it should be theirs. But the role of the primary contact is to keep the communication going. It tends to be the primary contact that gets all the news, all the emails. And but the role of the primary contact and the team is to review the application, to make sure it's as well written as it can be, to tighten it up if possible, so that the project will be more successful, that it has more sustainability to it. And so that's, I don't think it's our role to write the application unless it's a project in Kingston like Rotary Far. But it's to be active, to be there, to make sure that it's a good application. And of course, as time goes on, to follow up, to be with the club in whatever way possible. I presented to the Rotary Club of Madras Central on, it was before Zoom, what do you call that, Skype, in 2017, and visited the project in 2018 with friends from Rotary Club of Nipigon and our immediate past governor from Ottawa at the time, plus a couple of good fellows from Italy. And so it's really important to show up, because when you show up, it means you've taken the time, you've expressed the interest, and it deepens the relationship for further work. It's really necessary. You got to show up.
Yeah. And so then the more you know about the people you're working with, the better, the more meaningfully you can feed into the proposal. And then I guess you've always emphasized that it really has to be shaped by the voices of the people who are benefiting from the work.
Yes, and that in this case would be the medical folks at the Adyar Cancer Institute. It's a huge operation. You think at the size of Kingston General Hospital with 440 beds or something like this. Well, just for cancer alone, they have 550 beds. And they have something like 15,500 new clients every year, and 140, 150,000 repeat oversights. They have so many areas of work that they do. They have a lot of expertise, and they're well known, not just in India, but around the world for what they do.
But it also takes a huge amount of money to run a huge hospital like that. So this project, the amount of money would be really very small compared to that. So how could Rotary come in with just a little bit of money here and do something that's really significant?
Well, the thing of it is, it's a couple of things. It's a new area. And I think they had an interest in going into the area, but they're busy. And so I think what happened was they allowed this project to go forward along with a lot of other projects, because while we thought they were just going to build a little building, a little thing, and put the bone bank in it, it turned out it was a 6 or 8 story building that was being added. And we had part of the basement. So they had other activities going on, and we were combined in the construction project, and that actually delayed things a while till the hospital got all those other things organized. But and they put a younger doctor on it, not somebody who'd been around a long time. So the young doctor who went to Korea and other places to get his training. So finally, it takes a while, but it's up and going, and it's really quite delightful.
But now India is a big country. Was this the first bone bank in
No, it was the
India?
second.
Oh, second.
A country with what 1.3 billion people.
Yeah.
See, we don't often understand just how well off we are in Canada with the health system that we have and the expectations of healthcare delivery that we come to have because of so many good people working in our system. And we all could say what we could use more money in the Canadian system and the Ontario system, and that is true. It's one of the major stumbling blocks compared to in other parts of the world. We're really well off.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now this project is just getting underway, right? I mean, are there signs of success already?
Effectively, we thought we would be doing 100 of these per year by this time.
Okay.
But with these delays, and COVID didn't help. COVID's a big deal in India, just like it is here. I got news just the other day where the very first successful situation was, I think they've had, you see, you get the equipment in place, you get the building, and you got the machinery, and then we have to get the donors to donate the bones, and then the bones have to be processed and be put in a way where they can be kept, stored, and a lot of equipment is necessary to handle the bone and make sure it's clean and sanitary and healthy and all, whatever it might be. And so eventually you get an inventory of bone. At the same time, you're looking for candidates. And so a 6-year-old was the first one who had thigh cancer. And she's had this operation. It's gone really, really well. And this news came to me on the 3rd of February, just a few days ago. Wow. And just so delighted. And of course, I wrote to Vinod and I said, we're so thrilled, and his dad would be. I said, but I knew his dad died a year and a half ago. I had really wanted to meet his father because I wanted to learn from him. He's a generous type.
Bill, no, go ahead.
I said his mother is very keen because it's in their name. It's got his father's name. The name of the bone bank is his father's name. And Vinod says, and the momentum will start to grow now. We've got one over the curb. Now we get another one and another one and another one, and it'll become more routine, like having knee surgery or hip surgery in Canada that just ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching. And hopefully it'll get to the point where they can really help the many people who suffer.
You had a few pictures. I've got them already. Shall we just go through them? And it ends with that quote from that email you got. Shall we do that now? Yeah. Okay, here we go. Let me see if I've got this. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so that's the bone bank, and then we need to. Now, who's this?
That's Krish.
Okay, so he was one of your
one of the mentors.
Yeah, one of your mentors. Okay.
At our home, 10 years ago. There's me addressing the Rotary Club of Madras Central in 2017. I got more hair.
That was over Skype, was it?
Over Skype, the president of the club on the left. Now, imagine going to the Kingston General Hospital and seeing this big sign when you walk in the door saying, welcome the visitors, the dignitaries, about the work that you're going to be doing. And this is the 22nd of February, 2018.
Wow.
So, maybe Thomas can make sure that when the supporters are coming to they'll put the big sign up and they'll feel really welcomed.
Great. And there's the project.
There was they did a PowerPoint, and that's just, I was taking pictures from the audience. And there's a few that I took. You can actually get the full PowerPoint presentation. I have it, but in an earlier version. And
you can see the bone there in that,
Yeah.
Okay, and these are some of the details.
They were talking about the limiting factors of prosthesis. the
Right.
cost, the time delayed to have these things fabricated.
Well,
for
and
each
5 year
person.
survival only. I mean, that's, yeah.
Yeah. So
Prosthesis, yeah.
multiple revisions, etc., so that it was a
Yeah.
things need to be revisited, kind of like an automobile. You have to go in for service. Things, and John Farrow loves that. Cars got to come in. We got to put those parts on them to get them back out on the road. Well, people need rework as well.
Yeah. Wow. And there's an X-ray.
Yeah, and this is one where they're actually doing a composite with a bone, showing on the top part of the picture there. It's wider. That's bone, and then there was also some steel in this particular one, and it's not very well focused because I wasn't very good with the camera. Sorry.
Yeah. Right. Oh, who's this?
That's the doc that they trained, and this is in the basement. The floor was puddles everywhere, and the construction program. But this is where he was going to do his work. Young, interested, enthused, and really glad that he's going to be able to make a career, basically, of becoming a bone bank expert, all of that work. It's very exciting for him.
But that visiting and actually seeing and meeting the people, that must be a really wonderful part of it all.
Yes. Yeah. And as Michelle has put up here on a chat, in 2019 in February, many people from our club, well, several, included that in their itinerary on the Friendship Exchange. Michelle and Rick and John.
And there's the club they were the Madras Central were the ones on the ground.
That's right. So this was whenever you do a project in India, there's always a big whatever that goes out inviting you to the opening ceremony, and they have the big people in Rotary attend. Here are the three. On the left is the president of the club at the time of the project, Manoj. He was a dentist. On the right is Vinod. His father was the contributor. In the middle is the district governor at the time, C.G. Raju, who was an architect. So this is at the celebration when they had their big party. And here's the part from the first
news.
Happy news. Came in my WhatsApp. A 6-year-old girl was treated for cancer of thigh bone with bone from the bone bank. The bone block was used to replace the cancerous part of that was removed. The girl is doing fine and the healing is satisfactory. Without availability of such a bone bank, such patients would have to undergo multiple treatments over years using metal plants.
Wow.
Thank you, Rotary. Thanks, Rotary Club of Cataraqui-Kingston.
What a great story. Yeah, that's wonderful. Thanks. Well, now, Madam President, do we have time for questions and comments?
Yes, you do. Not a lot of time, so maybe limit it to maybe 5 minutes.
Okay. Well, let's see who we've got here.
Joyce has got her hand up.
Okay.
And then
Joyce
Heather Nograti.
And Heather. Okay, thanks. We'll go to Joyce then first.
You're muted, Joyce.
Okay, you have to unmute me. Could you send us a link? Because I try to look up Bone Bank and the only thing I can find is one established in 1993 in the US. So I'm just curious. I'd like to read more about it.
Sure, I will actually.
Add Madras Central to it or Rotary, and then you'll get that one maybe.
Yeah, yes, and I can also connect you to the PowerPoint that they have so you can look at it. As I said, it's an earlier version, not fully edited, but you look at the gist of it. So we'll get out the PowerPoint and
perhaps Madras might learn something from the bone banks in the US since it's already established. They could probably, jump through the bad hoops.
Well, yes, and there's also now in Mumbai, and there's 2 others, one in Hyderabad, Mumbai. So, they will see lots of people, but that's right. And many of the medical people in whatever specialty around the world have trained in lots of places. It's your training is just not just the medical schools where you go for residency and your specialist training. So it's not a huge community, and they get to know one another through their training and their conventions, etc.
And Michelle,
I'm just thinking it might be a consideration that they might want to send these students to the establishments in the US to learn.
Yeah, well, as I said, they went to Korea because Korea is very advanced. And Korea is probably more cost effective, less expensive for them. Everything in America is very expensive. And other countries, you can get things same quality for less work.
So you want to go to Heather?
Okay, Heather and O'Grady.
I was just wondering, Bill, with these bone transplants, do the patients require any anti-rejection drugs? Or, I mean, because these are old and dead bones, I wouldn't imagine that there's, you know, a rejection.
Bones?
You know, I mean.
I don't think there's rejection with bone the way there are for tissue,
Okay.
for organs. That's a big problem, but I have not heard that there's an issue regarding rejection of bone.
So that's a good thing.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, goodbye. Here I am. Yes, I think it is a good thing.
Yeah, thanks.
I could ask my friend in downtown Kingston, who's a potter. He's twice gone to the Kingston General Hospital bone bank for bone to straighten his legs so he can be active in the community. And I could ask.
Michelle, are you looking?
Yeah,
Michelle,
Yeah, I was just gonna jump. I was just gonna jump
good.
in there. So I was looking to see if I had any photos, because when we did the tour, as our friendship exchange went to India, this was one of the project stops that we were at, and the equipment was just starting to be, if I remember correctly, was starting to be in. And that was one of my questions too, Heather, like, how does this work? Because medical is not my thing at all. And some of the equipment that comes in is to take all of the genetic material that could cause rejection with patients out. And I'll go through some of my photos to add to Bill's story, because it was an amazing experience to be able to be there and to connect with the people who were so intimately involved. And Bill, if I'd realized you were going to be talking about the bone bank, I would have prepped in advance to look at a few. But the dedication of the lead doctor, I believe he was part of our tour that day, and it was just a fascinating step forward and real care for people.
Yes, you have to have that champion, and without that champion, it's not going to take off and be the thing, be the support to the community that it needs to be. Yeah.
And Michelle has really picked up, just before we go to Elizabeth, Michelle has really picked up on an important part of this. I mean, the friendship exchange, it's not just a friendship exchange, it's a real learning, a real connecting experience. And I think Carol Karchik, weren't you also on that trip? No, you weren't. Okay.
She was in South Africa.
On a different one, okay. But these exchanges also not only strengthen existing projects, but lead to others. One thing just leads to another in international work. A project is never an isolated thing by itself. Elizabeth.
This is a comment rather than a question, because immediately when Bill talked about meeting the stranger who was a Rotarian in an airport, and it began a relationship with this Rotarian in Nipigon, and that led to a project that the National Committee supported, that the Rotary Club of Nipigon was carrying out.
That's right, building a ramp.
Center. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. So, it just never stops, Elizabeth. It just doesn't stop. And there's projects everywhere. Nipigon, I think, has come into the project we're doing, the more recent one, which is the National Committee's working on, which is the treatment of Indigenous persons to manage water treatment facilities on reserves. So that's in Central Ontario. And
I think John Farrow's had his hand up for quite a while.
Oh, okay. John Farrow, and then John will also be thanking us. So before he does, I'm just going to thank Bill myself. That was a fast trip, but it really helped me understand more fully and richly the whole process and what it is for individual Rotarian who's never isolated to be involved in an international project. So so over to John for the last one.
Well, I forgot. I didn't notice that I was on speaker thanks, but I'm really glad actually that I am on speaker thanks, because I have a lot to be thankful for from Bill. Bill, of course, was my president-elect. He followed me as president of the club, which was certainly makes president's job easy when you've got a guy like Bill as your president-elect. Bill also taught me the importance of one thing that he didn't mention, and that is getting to international conventions. He invited me to be part of a malaria project with Deborah Lefebvre, and we attended the Montreal convention in 2010, and that was a fabulous experience. And it was a good thing that somebody was driving a minivan at the time, because we had to load about 15 cases of shirts into the back of the van, and poor Heather Kemble was sitting in the second row seat, and she was squished in with all of the shirts, with myself driving and Dave Hallett in the other front seat. So that was a great memory. Bill, yes.
I was going to say,
go ahead, Bill.
I was going to say those shirts came to our district as a result of the relationship that we have there. And over $8,000 was raised in our district for international projects.
Yep. And they were
thanks to that relationship.
They were just gifted to us. They didn't want to take them back home to Pakistan or wherever or India, wherever he was from. And he said, take these and sell them. So Bill, thank you for the presentation. The Bone Bank project is, of course, one of many that we're involved with, and we really appreciate the work that you do. It's great to have a person who is able to travel and has those connections, because it makes international projects so much easier. And we really appreciate you being part of our club. So thank you very much. Thank you for your presentation. And as always, thank you for your friendship and your service to Rotary.
Thanks very much, John. And thank you very much, Rotary Club of Cataraqui-Kingston and others that are on this call. It's really great to be with you. Thanks.
That's awesome. So oftentimes, Bill, you tell us stories about you wearing your Rotary pin. As part of our induction process, we say to folks, you know, as the president pins the Rotary pin on someone's lapel, and we say, you're now part of the Rotary family, wear your pin with pride. And oftentimes those connections that we create are just simply someone noticing the pin on your lapel. And you've told us those stories. So folks, when we get back in person, if you're out there in the community, wear your pin and be proud to be a Rotarian as we create relationships all over the world. Bill, thank you so much for the work you do.
Thank you very much. You know, I'll just say, I would be unable to do anything if I didn't have a supported club. So, you know, I'm out there, but you're there too. So thank you very much.